It's about to get real bad here for us in America. I have firsthand access to what's going on in our healthcare system because I live at the hospital with my identical twin daughters while they go through a 2-year chemo treatment plan on a clinical trial that used to be funded by the government but is no longer. I am a family that currently uses Medicaid and is about to watch what happens when that is finally cut, because it will happen. Our hospital, God, what do we even call her? She's at Kenya. Shout out, love you. Social worker, doing the Lord's work, helping us try to just take advantage of all the leftover scraps that there are. And she's told us all of those programs are running dry, and for everyone saying that it doesn't matter that the federal funding's cut because there's plenty of great private institutions that will help. Well, hey, guess what? They're actually not helping. I can also tell you what it's going to look like now that the Medicaid is cut and families who no longer are insured are having to rush their children to Seattle Children's ER because they can't afford to take their children to the pediatrician because they don't have health insurance. So while all of us are already suffering, you in your privilege might think that none of this is going to affect you, but even with your private insurance, in times of crisis, you're going to have to show up to the emergency department. And when they're flooded with families who used to rely on Medicaid and now have to use the ER as their common pediatrician, you are going to be experiencing healthcare professionals that are drowning in patients who they are not equipped financially to take care of, because what happens is when the insurance can no longer be billed, the hospital is billing, and these families don't have the money to pay the hospital.
So under Trump's new order, you don't have to commit a crime to lose your freedom. You just have to be mentally ill, or queer, or too loud, or visibly poor, and that's all it might take. So let's talk about Trump's latest executive order, because it doesn't just criminalize homelessness, it lays the groundwork to institutionalize people under the label of mental illness. And that should scare everybody. So here's what the executive order says. It orders the DOJ and HHS to, quote, roll back precedents that limit civil commitment of those who are mentally ill, addicted, or unable to care for themselves. So what does that mean? It means that the federal government wants to make it easier to forcibly institutionalize people. And here's the danger. These terms, mentally ill, unable to care for oneself, are so broad and so vague that they've been abused before. Historically, trans people, queer people, even women who were too outspoken were diagnosed as mentally ill and locked away for it. And now, right-wing influencers are calling queerness a mental disorder. They joke about Trump derangement syndrome like it's an actual illness. And if you think that that language doesn't bleed into policy, you have not been paying attention. Because this order actually doesn't just criminalize homelessness, it ties federal funding to cities that enforce bans on urban camping, loitering, even squatting, and it tells the courts to re-examine protections that have kept people out of institutions for decades. So let me ask you this. If they get to decide who counts as mentally ill, what's stopping them from saying it's the trans kid, the drag performer, a protester with a megaphone, an immigrant mom who doesn't comply? This is not mental health care. It's control. It's erasure. And we have seen it before, just not on this scale.
The U.S. may be headed for another 2008-level financial crisis. And you know who's responsible? Donald Trump and BlackRock. Back in 2008, millions of Americans lost their homes, their jobs, and their entire life savings because of toxic investments, massive hidden risks, and reckless financial engineering that just collapsed under its own weight. Fast forward to today, and those exact same risks are being capitalized on. Donald Trump has just signed an executive order allowing your 401k, your retirement money, to be poured into crypto and private equity. These assets are volatile, hard to value, and in some cases, impossible to sell in the case of a crisis. Meaning if they tank, your retirement fund could be wiped out. And at the center of this, the engineer of this, is BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager. Did you know BlackRock managed Fannie Mae's mortgage debt before the crash and then was hired to clean up the mortgage debt mess after the crash? They had massive financial incentive from managing that crisis, and today they manage $9 trillion of your pension and retirement funds. And their CEO, Larry Fink, has been pushing hard for private market access and digital cryptocurrency for everyone, and he just got the green light from the Oval Office. I wonder what financial incentive Larry Fink could have from increasing the risk profile of your investments. And what makes this even worse is the compounded pressure of our $1.7 trillion student loan crisis. Remember the Trump administration's announcement that they'll garnish the wages of those who default? That's less money out of your paycheck for food, rent, utilities, and now on top of it, your retirement fund could be wiped out from high-risk bets. In 2008, the danger was risky subprime mortgages packaged into complex securities. Today, it's risky, illiquid private equity deals and speculative crypto stuffed inside your retirement account. On top of historic high student loan debts and wage garnishment, both of these crises share the same dangerous traits: opaque pricing, concentration of risk, and the potential for a very sudden and brutal collapse. Except it's not going to be BlackRock or Donald Trump feeling the weight of that collapse. It's going to be me and you. And this isn't fear-mongering. Unless regulators put very, very strict guardrails into place, history isn't just going to rhyme. It's going to repeat itself.
Everyone, it's Anthony here. So in this video, I have made a compilation of several aspects of American life where you can see how our country is messed up on different levels of our society. Healthcare, the financial aspects, and our freedoms. So you can see from the three clips, the first lady claims that our healthcare is damned. The other lady is claiming that Trump is labeling Democrats as mentally ill so as to make arrests and ensure that they don't vote come 2026 and 2028. The other lady has said something very interesting, which I usually focus on, that at the moment, our president is making a mistake. He's allowing these corporates which manage our pensions to put them in crypto. Do you know about a crypto coin which was it a Luna coin? Luna coin. It crashed overnight. Crypto have almost zero regulations from the government. So when you put my savings in crypto without my consent, what do you expect? What if they vanish overnight?
I'm sorry, we need how much to live comfortably in the United States? The median family income in the United States is a little under $70,000. $70,000. No state in the United States enables a family to live comfortably with $70,000 in income. So yeah, something monumental needs to be done to correct this. Because as wages continue to stay stagnant and inflation to keep going up, we're all going to be priced out. It's not a question of working harder, it's not a question of working overtime. This is now a question of structural, systematic change. This map shows that the cheapest place to live for a family is in Mississippi. $178,000. And billionaires and corporations think that they have it rough?
And this message is for every American who's scared right now. I'm a U.S. Army veteran and scientist who served in Afghanistan and Germany. We are living in unprecedented times. This administration is dangerously extremist. Dangerously radical. Because it's the government, many people have a false notion that whatever they do is normal. But it isn't. A lot of people don't understand what's happening in America right now. Racism, misogyny, and bigotry are rapidly becoming mainstream. Meanwhile, they're already threatening to silence political opposition. Our system is broken. Our economy isn't working for working people. Instead of fighting back against the system, which seems insurmountable, we fight against each other. They brainwash people into hating each other over small differences. Fear is their greatest tool. To all those who trash me in my comment sections, I have a message for you. You're being duped. They want you to hate your neighbor while they continue to rob you blind. In what world will deporting hardworking, undocumented immigrants lead to higher wages and cheaper groceries for you? It's time to activate our communities, and it's time to educate anyone you know who's willing to listen. We need to start sounding the alarm in any way we can. We cannot wait until the 2026 election. We are rapidly losing our rights and our freedoms. I know many of you are tired and scared. I'm tired too. But we need to stand together in this critical moment. It's now or never.
Screaming since early February that Trump's ultimate plan is to start disappearing American citizens to this gulag, to this concentration camp, to America's Auschwitz in El Salvador. Anybody who criticizes this regime, anybody who criticizes Trump, anybody who draws his ire, any political dissidents, American citizens, he intends to kidnap you and ship you to a gulag in El Salvador where you will be disappeared forever. You don't have to commit a crime. Abrego Garcia didn't commit any crimes. And you will not get due process. Abrego Garcia and none of these men that were shipped down there have gotten due process. I realized that some people didn't care when it was just a threat to immigrants, when their rights were being violated, when their lives were on the line. This is now a threat against every American citizen. Do we want an America where the government will snatch you out of your bed, kidnap you in the middle of the night, and ship you out of this country to a brutal torture prison in Central America from which you shall never return? That is now on the table for every single one of us. I'm not at home, so I don't have the capability to upload the video right now. But if you think I'm exaggerating, Trump, as he was speaking to Bukele, he said he intends to ship homegrown criminals to El Salvador, and that El Salvador needs to build at least 5 more places. Remember when he said he wanted to put 30,000 people in Gitmo? His plan is to ship at least tens of thousands of Americans, pretty much anybody who disagrees with him, could be millions, to torture prisons, to concentration camps in El Salvador. And he will pay for that using the tax dollars of the rest of us. I don't know what's going to happen next. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a legal expert. I'm not a historian. I don't know what recourse the Supreme Court has when the president is outright defying them. I do know that every goddamn Republican in the House and the Senate is complicit in this. They are collaborators. Because at any point in time, every Republican could vote for impeachment and removal. That is their constitutional duty. Not just Trump, who is destroying our country, dismantling our rights, implementing a reign of terror. Every Republican in the House and the Senate is enabling and empowering this. They could stop this at any time, and they are choosing not to. I also know that you are probably as scared as I am. This is really, really scary stuff. So I want to remind you right now that the power of the people is greater than the people in power. That we need to organize. We need to understand the severity of the situation, and we need to act. We ultimately can and will save ourselves. And it is all hands on deck now.
Buying silver around 2 or 3 years ago, and I'm up around 100% on that investment. It's the same thing with crypto, same thing with really any other asset class that is up against the US dollar. The US dollar continues to crumble, and right now the narrative that is being painted for us as normal human beings is to constantly transact our time, our effort, and our ideas for US dollars. And now this is being pushed to a global scale where the cryptocurrency markets are essentially fully transacted based on USDT or USDC, which are stable coins backed, against the US dollar. So again, we are trying to push people to continue to exchange time, effort, and ideas and work for US dollars. Meanwhile, the US government is hedging against this by getting into these TradeFi plays such as exchanges, prediction markets, buying crypto and buying up commodities, literally hedging a bet against their own system while we...
All right, y'all, I think it's fair to say that the U.S. economy at this point is beyond cooked. We are getting horrible, horrible warning signs. Day after day, they are piling up one on top of the other. Let's start with this one. 91% of fund managers believe U.S. stocks are overvalued. That's the most in history. 91%. In other words, let me put this into layman's terms for you. We're in a bubble. That bubble's going to burst. When that bubble bursts, oh my goodness, is the pain going to be widespread. Because think about it. The giant bubble that we're in, a lot of the heavy lifting is being done by these tech stocks. Because of the AI boom, right? But, as we're already seeing, we're beginning to see the air come out of that bubble a little bit because people are beginning to realize, well, hold on now. It seems like people overpromised with AI, underdelivered for AI, and China's already ahead of us anyway. And now you get these horror stories of like people becoming psychopaths because AI convinced them that they're some sort of mega genius. We're already seeing a number of those dystopian. So not good to say the least. All right, let's keep going. I'll give you more. People Googling help for mortgage. Help for mortgage. It has now surpassed.
So, do you know that if you are a convicted felon, you cannot vote? Trump's main agenda is to ensure that as many Democrats as possible have become convicted felons. That's why you see he is provoking Americans in the streets to ensure that they get arrested. You saw the other day, uh, there was this demonstrations against ICE in Chicago. Several protesters were arrested. Hmm? At the moment, he has labeled Antifa as a terrorist organization. That means very bad for our state at the moment. Yes, it's very bad for our state. People are being pushed into depression by hard economic times. And when people are pushed into depression, they make these rash judgments, these rash mistakes. They are under temper because nothing is working for them. And our country is being depressed day by day. Economic hardships, you know, you have to work every day, even if you are sick. Uh, like I saw in Illinois, there is no sick leave. You cannot be paid sick leave. Even when you're sick, you have to work out. You have to work. Every day you are out is a missed wage, is a missed mortgage, is a missed medical insurance. It's everything missed. So as a country, we are being pushed into depression.
Did you know that China is not fighting back against Donald Trump's tariffs with tariffs? Instead, China is, like Beijing, is blocking US exports like beef, poultry, eggs. So they're blocking them. They cannot be imported into China from the US, along with natural gas. So what they're doing is China is implementing trade barriers. So they're no longer ordering products from us, including soybeans. And they are specifically targeting red states like Iowa and Nebraska. These non-tariff moves are pretty genius, I have to say. And they use things like canceled licenses that they have with beef, poultry, and stuff like that, suppliers. And what they're doing is they're calling them out on safety accusations, bacteria, disease, etc., etc. And instead, China is just shifting, and they're buying beef, poultry, and whatnot from countries like Australia. And they're getting soybeans from Brazil. And now all of the producers, mainly farmers, in the red states are absolutely freaking out because they're losing all of this money, all of these orders from China. And it's a lot of orders. So the unintended consequence of this also would mean that things like egg prices should start dropping, because if China stops buying eggs, that means these guys are going to have a surplus of eggs. And if they have a surplus of eggs, egg prices should drop. But that wasn't the goal of Trump's tariffs. But these devastating results, they can cost Trump a lot, including any political support from his base, or just from Republicans and people who voted him into office, and now they're hurting. I read this one thing on the Economic Times that said a guy named Ben Lilliston of the Institute for Agriculture said, a tariff, you can just pay it, but this is a full restriction. So Trump didn't see that one coming. That means no workaround sales, as he points out, just a complete stop to trade in some cases. And many people are asking, could Trump's core states feel the economic heat? And the answer is yes, and they already are. Over 90% of U.S. beef exports to China have stopped. In the same article that I read, it said, why is China targeting Trump's base with trade restrictions? And the answer is because many of the industries being hit, beef, gas, poultry, are based in red states that strongly support Trump. So China they're really playing hardball here.
I got something on my mind, and I got something I want to say, which should come as a surprise to no one. Under this current administration, we have watched them strip away funding for medical research to areas like cardiovascular disease, cancer, stroke, Alzheimer's, lower respiratory illnesses, diabetes, and some other areas. We've watched them deregulate industries that pollute our air and water. We've watched them destroy agencies that fight mental illness, and now we've watched them strip away Medicaid for many, many, many Americans. He has put in place RFK Jr. of Health and Human Services as the secretary, who was a known anti-vaxxer, a known conspiracy theorist. He came in, fired everybody, and brought in his own team, one of which is Dr. Robert Malone, who has been known to put out misinformation about vaccines, all the while spewing their slogan, I had to choke myself up, make America healthy again. He actually had a quote, we cannot be a strong country when our citizens are sick. So, it is unbelievable to me that there are people out there, Trump supporters, MAGA, who still don't see that the words and the actions don't line up. They're telling you one thing, but they're doing another. There is going to be a health crisis in this country. And places like Alabama and, Alaska, Kentucky, places with a lot of rural areas cannot handle another health crisis, especially one that is preventable. And this is all, I want to blame it all on Trump, but I can't because he's an idiot. He is nothing but a puppet who is puppeting Americans. He does not know anything about how to run a country. He is incompetent. He is unknowledgeable. He's too narcissistic to be in the role that he's in. But because he can be loud, and because he can be grandiose, and because he can use big adjectives, there are people that are still buying his bullshit. People are going to be sick, and people are going to die. More people under Donald Trump. If Americans, if MAGA, if Trump supporters do not wake up and see that you are being lied to, and you are being manipulated, and you are being played for a fool, why do you think they don't want us believing in science? Why do you think they just want us in church and praying and not doing research and not listening to those dumb Democrats and all the experts and the scientists and stuff? Because they want you dumb, they want you sick, and they want you weak. Because you know what dumb, sick, weak people that can't do? They can't fight back. It is so frustrating that there are people out here who still do not see that this man is a sociopath. Who only wants to harm people for his ego. Cruelty is the point. You can't strip away medical research, strip away insurance, and then all the while saying we're trying to make America healthy again. It doesn't add up. Wake up.
Everything that's happening in our country right now is so difficult to process that I don't even know if I have the right words, but today is 9/11, and for those of us who've been alive long enough, we remember that day as if it were yesterday. And I saw a quote this morning that said, in order to remember the lives that were lost on 9/11, we should return to being the type of people we were on 9/12. And for those of you who weren't alive then, I'll explain what that means. So when that tragic day occurred, September 11th, the next day, we became one of the most united nations on earth. We became patriotic because patriotism wasn't a bad word back then. We became proud Americans. Didn't matter what walk of life we were from, who we voted for, what we believed in. Nothing mattered. What mattered was it was us against them. We were united, right? I remember seeing everyone putting little American flags on their cars. It gives me the chills to think about that and to remember it, because we have devolved so much from that day that we are unrecognizable. And I wish it wouldn't matter as much as it does to me now, but it does because I'm a mother, and this is the country and the world that I leave behind for them, that they inherit, and it's grossly unfair. And I think it's why a lot of us Gen X are so incredibly nostalgic for how we grew up, because our world was not this world. Sure, there were bad things that happened, but the response to the bad things that happened were vastly different than the response people have now. When Ronald Reagan had an attempt on his life, there were people that didn't like him. There were people that did. But people came together. It united the country. When devastating things happened in our country, in my lifetime prior to now, people came together. It's the opposite now. I feel that if 9/11 were to happen now, it would be a vastly different response. And yes, social media and the news and all of that has a lot to do with it, because I feel like there's a lot of hysteria, mass hysteria being pumped out.
So we need to talk about the famine that is coming. And I know that sounds dramatic, but before we move forward, I just want to define famine. Okay, so famine can be defined as an extreme scarcity of food. Used in a sentence, then, it would be drought could result in famine throughout the region. So I first want to draw our attention to this article right here. Some Florida farmers reduce crops as deportation fears drive workers away. So in this article, they're basically talking about how immigration crackdowns are impacting food security in the United States. Almost overnight, legislation has essentially scared off an entire workforce that is essential for us being able to eat. Agricultural employment has reportedly fallen 150,000 workers, the biggest dip in nearly a decade. And because of this, farmers are having to take extreme measures as far as what they're going to plant this year. Many farmers are forced to limit their crop size. This farmer interviewed in this article said he's dropping it to 35%. He's not even doing half of what he used to produce. The farmer himself says, the government is killing farming, he says. This is going to end us. End of the quote. So I want to do some basic economics here, and I'm going to do a quick visual to try to help with that. Okay, so imagine I have a jar full of marbles, right? And each person can come up and buy a marble from me, right? And the first person, their marble's going to be $1. The second person, their marble's going to be $2, and so on. And the picture I'm trying to paint here is the less of something there is, the more the price goes up. And in the real world, the idea is that the demand is still high, however, the quantity is still low. Therefore, the price point will be high because it is something that is coveted, that is wanted. Okay, now that we got that out the way, if you're still here with me, leave me a comment or something. Let's keep going. So next I want to show this. This is the food price outlook from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And so basically what this is essentially a roadmap from data sets pulled by the government to show us what we can expect as far as the pricing of food in the near future. Now, if you noticed on that last photo, it was updated on August 25th, 5 days after the NPR article. I will say I did see it before the 25th, and some of the numbers definitely look different. I thought I was going to have a different report. Stay tuned. So last time I was on the site, it seemed as though I was gathering that they were going to say that it was going to be a little bit of increase, but should kind of flatten out. But now I'm back on the site and it's saying pretty much increases all across the board. I'll read some percentages that stick out to me. Okay, first thing, eating out. Predicted to increase by 3.9%. So add another 39 cents to every $10 you spend on your meal eating out. In 2026, prices for all food are predicted to increase by 2.2%. Add 22 cents to every $10 you spend on groceries. Poultry prices, chicken, expected to rise or increase 2.5%. So add another quarter on every $10 you might spend on chicken at the grocery store. Egg prices are predicted to increase 24.4% in 2025. This includes price increases already realized from January through March 2025. Even if retail eggs continue to decrease over the coming months, higher prices realized earlier this year will continue to factor in the forecast. Let me break that down. They are going to continue to keep that price point there because they found out because of scarcity when it went there before, it bought them more money. So now that's calculated into the forecast. Okay, price of vegetables. Surprisingly, a pretty small increase, I guess. Fresh vegetables are predicted to decrease by 0.8% in 2025. Not sure how we're going to pull that off. However, do have questions about the quality of this fresh produce if we're going to somehow diminish it as the workforce is diminishing, though. Prices for non-alcoholic beverages, sodas, 3.6%. So add another 40 about cents to every $10 you spend on soda. Farm cattle prices predicted to increase 21.4%. Wholesale beef prices predicted to increase 10.5%. Now, I also want to acknowledge that these things are happening for a variety of reasons. I think the farmer kind of started this idea in my head, and just the way our government runs and how we secure our food and pay for food is really dense. So I want to get into this more, especially when you factor in the fact that a lot of our food comes subsidized. And it's not necessarily that they're taking a discount on what we're paying. It's more of the government might give companies different sign-off and bonuses to lower their prices while they're producing, so we don't have to pay the full price of what the labor would actually take, because it takes a lot to actually provide things like meat. And so when you have these subsidies being cut, as well as the workforce that supported these subsidized industries, you have it tied up in law and courts as the people are so distracted by the food prices going up and the supply going down. And not
Divided further, and no one is ready for the conversation. Our country is so divided at the moment. We can't agree even on the basic issues because we have a president who came to power through hatred, through racism, and he cannot afford to have a country on a united front because that will be a threat to his power. This is a man who drives on hate. Yes. And love is not a part of his agenda. He is not concerned about uniting us as a country. After the recent incident involving Charlie Kirk, you saw that he came hard on the left without even waiting for the FBI report to know who the perpetrator was. He came hard at the left. It's like he was waiting for the moment. Mm. It's like he was waiting for the moment. And if the result didn't come otherwise, this country would be in a bad state. So, guys, we are in a mess. We are in a leader. We are with a leader who is childish, who leads based on emotion. Trump needs to understand that the presidency, not him, the presidency is a symbol of national unity. He should respect the office, even though he lacks respect in himself. Trump should respect the office which he is. State House is not a local casino, a local boys club to invite fellow billionaires to divide our country apart into pieces. White House is not a place to spread hatred, to divide people into groups and then spread hate rhetoric towards them. That's not the work of a president. As a president, he leads both Democrats and Republicans, and that's something that he should know before making a statement on the national television. He is not the president of Republicans only. Biden was the president of every American. Obama was the president of every American. Ronald Reagan, if he woke today, he would be very confused. He would denounce the Republican Party. If Ronald Reagan woke up today, he would denounce the Republican Party. True. The values of today's Republican Party has been messed up.